Hello and welcome, Grid Nation, to a new episode of the Success Grid podcast. My guest today, Raj Subrameyer. He's a tech career strategist focusing on helping people to land their dream job and become successful leaders. He is passionate about guiding professionals to maximize their opportunities and discover their zone of genius. He has given multiple TEDx talks and sought after speaker at various events, and he has been featured in numerous media outlets. Raj, welcome to the Grid.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. Me too. I'm super excited about that. So, Raj, you're about career, you're about development, you're about leadership. Tell us a little bit about yourself first, so the listeners can know who you are.
Sure. So I'm a tech career strategist. So I help people specifically in the tech space to find their dream job and become successful leaders. I've been in the tech space for over 15 years now and running on 16. And I've helped over 50 plus clients, and this is what I do. I help people figure out their careers, and a byproduct of that is it gets into their personal life and I help them become more mindful, become more productive. So that's what I do. I also speak at a lot of conferences and private events. Just before we started the podcast, I was telling you that I just finished my second TEDx talk as well. So that's something I love to do. And finally, I do a lot of writing. I write for a lot of large publications, tech publications. And so that's what I do. I live in Chicago, and I've been doing this for 3.5 years now.
Awesome. So you're basically into career development, but let me ask you first the distinction between career and, let's say, entrepreneurs or business owners. What is to you the difference between these both?
That's a great question. So I think I should start with the commonalities first before talking about differences. The commonalities between people who are looking to advance in their careers and people who want to become entrepreneurs are both need mindset and consistency. You need to shift your mindset to a positive frame of mind, because if you still are in your negative frame of mind, then you cannot make the leap. You cannot take the next step, right? So you need to have the mindset, and you need to have consistency. So once you figure out what you want to do in your career or as an entrepreneur, you need to do the work. That's where a lot of people are lacking, because they have these amazing ideas and stuff, but they don't do the work. There's too much talky, but less doing the work, right? So you need to be consistent in doing the work. So mindset, consistency, and one more commonality would be believing in delayed gratification. So what do I mean by that? We live in this digital world.
Especially lately in this couple of years, I think it accelerated even more.
Oh, 100%. And we see this all. We see the social media influencers on Instagram, and then they have this pictures next to their Ferraris, next to their big, houses, and then everyone wants to be that person. But no one knows the backstory. It probably took 15 years for that person to get to where they were, or they're just faking it to preserve the social media presence they have, right? So we don't know the real story. So everyone wants results immediately. No one believes in doing the work, taking small steps, having small wins, and then getting that huge result, right? And I think whether you want to advance in your career or you're an entrepreneur, you need to be patient. You need to do those small steps. Don't look for the easy wins. Look for the long-term vision, look for the long-term wins. So that's the commonalities. But coming back to your original question of what's the difference? I think entrepreneurs, for some reason, most of them are ready to take risks, and they're more open-minded. So for example, COVID hit the entire world in 2020, and entrepreneurs were forced to, rethink their business strategy, because a lot of people had in-person businesses, and then all of a sudden in a day things change. Exactly. So you were forced to pivot, and that's part of being an entrepreneur, where there are going to be a lot of curveballs, and you need to pivot and shift your strategy continuously. That's the life of being an entrepreneur, right? If you're looking for career advancement once you get a job, you probably, to a certain extent, you forget about taking risks and you start getting comfortable in your cushy comfort.
It is very comfortable. After like 3 months, 6 months, it becomes a complete routine.
Exactly.
You could work while you are blind. So
I think entrepreneurs are more of the risk takers and they're more open-minded to pivot. I'm not saying all entrepreneurs, but most of them, at least I've met, including myself, we had to, and probably yourself as well, we had to pivot based on the times. And people who have 9 to 5 jobs working for someone, they're still not yet there. But I think slowly things are shifting because COVID not only hit entrepreneurs, it hit the entire world. So everyone had time to do some retrospection to see whether they're the right job, whether they need to start a side hustle, whether they have to start a business. So it actually forced a lot of people to think out of the box. So I would say that's a big difference. It's just risk taking and being open-minded.
Yeah. COVID, especially these 2 years, like compressed people to decompress, I think. So
exactly.
Because even like you mentioned, some business owners, whether it's restaurants, whatever it is, even mechanics, even cars, accessories places, or some places were closed because of that. So these people did not know how to adapt in this situation. So, but some of them maybe, I believe, started to pivot and found new ways to do online selling and these kind of things. But what do you think, from your perspective, is the ways to be a rock star, for example, in a business, or even, of course, at the place where you do your job?
So could you repeat that question again?
Where can anyone be a rock star, for example, to be the person that takes the place, take the initiative, and move on into, let's say, the ladder of the corporate?
So how can people move up in their corporate ladder and then take that initiative? That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and be the obvious one to take leadership in the business, especially when you start off new,
Oh, yeah. So I think it first boils down to having a clear strategy. This is the thing, and I say this quite often. I believe our lives are like a GPS system. Say, for example, using Google Maps, without putting the destination address, you cannot expect to reach a particular destination. And then you cannot complain Google Maps is not working properly. And our lives are the same way. Our careers are the same way. If you don't have at least a decent strategy or a vision on where you want to be, then all the time, effort, and the work you put in is a waste because you don't know why you're doing what you're doing. So getting clarity, I think, is the number one thing for you to start advancing either in your career or as an entrepreneur, right? And there's a simple exercise actually to do that. And for your viewers and listeners, they could even quickly do this. So just take a paper and pen. Okay, this is called the mind dump exercise. Put a vertical line through the middle of the paper. On the left column, write down all the things you hate to do and you don't want to do. And on the right column, write down all the things you love to do or you want to do in life. And do this in an uninterrupted manner for about 30 minutes to an hour. No Facebooking, no text messaging, just focus.
Hopefully it happened when Facebook went down. And
I know, hopefully it happened when Facebook went down, right? But the thing is, all the things you want to do in life is actually locked in your mind. You just have to unravel it one by one and put it visually on paper. When you see things visually, you can start finding patterns. So say, for example, you did this exercise and then you're finding different patterns where you love collaboration, you love communication, you love creativity, you hate micromanaging, being micromanaged, you hate processes, you love working with people, then that is going to tell you something about where you want to be. You probably want a job, you want to do something that reflects these characters, these trends. So based on that, you may find 4 to 5 things you want to do in life based on the things you love to do, you want to do. Then pick the top 3 things you think you'll be good at, and then start experimenting with it one by one. Take the first item from the list which you've identified, try that for a month or two and analyze how it is going, and then pivot if needed and see whether that's what you want to do. If that's not working out, then take the second item, do that for the next couple of months, and then see what happens. And this holds true for careers in normal 9-to-5 jobs or being an entrepreneur. People think I magically became a tech career strategist and have been doing this now. In fact, funny story, I started my business doing technical workshops where I was giving training to help people code, to learn coding, and then how to test software. That's how I started with.
Oh, so you started basically with applications on mobile, these kind of things.
Yeah. So I was experimenting to see what I want to do in life, right? And then after 7-8 months, I quickly realized that, you know what, this is not giving me that impact and the passion, the joy I wanted. Then I went back, I did some retrospection and thought, okay, what other strengths I have? And after doing the mind dump exercise, I could find out patterns where people kept telling me that I have a knack for motivating people. I help people in their personal lives and careers, and I used to manage people, and they used to tell me, dude, you're an amazing boss and I love working with you. You have this mentality to, encourage people to become the best version of themselves. So all these things I could figure out from this exercise. And then I thought, you know what, I should probably start helping people in their careers and see whether that's what I want to do. And now 3.5 years down the line, I'm continuing to do it. And that's pretty much what my passion is right now. So to cut a long story short, if you want to advance in your career as a 9-to-5 individual contributor at a company or an entrepreneur, have a clear strategy, a clarity on what you want to do, then start experimenting with things. Not everything is going to work in the first instant. Experiment with it. If it doesn't work, then try something else. If that doesn't work, try something else. And that's what life is about.
Exactly. So you spoke about motivation there. So we all, like most people, a lot of us, business owners, entrepreneurs, working in 9-to-5, whatever it is, sometimes we get lazy, let's say, or don't want to do certain things. We get bored to do things. So what do you specifically to stay motivated for yourself? And like you mentioned others, what do you do to help others to stay motivated and inspired also?
So that's a great question. So all entrepreneurs all people go through the rut. That's what I call it, where they're constantly working. Then you hit a roadblock where you don't feel like doing stuff, no matter how passionate you are. So first, we have to get down to the basics. So there are two types of motivation. You have what is called intrinsic motivation, which is motivation inside you. And then you have extrinsic motivation, that is motivation outside you, right? So let's talk about intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation are things within you which keeps you going, right? It could be your previous experiences being in the same situation. Then you start thinking about what you did, and then you start thinking about, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? Okay, it's because I want to make an impact. It's because I want to change people's lives. So you do the self-talk internally to get motivated. That's intrinsic motivation. Then you have extrinsic motivation, which is external factors which could motivate you. For me, I have my wife who constantly keeps motivating me. She's my accountability partner.
Cool,
and
awesome.
I would encourage everyone to have a trusted friend or accountability partner who could keep pushing you, right?
Exactly.
And then I have inspirational quotes. I'm a sucker for inspirational quotes. All over my house, there are inspirational quotes. Even in my office, there's inspirational quotes. So whenever I feel like not doing the work, then I look at those.
There is a reminder.
Exactly. There's a reminder there on what I really need to do. And then I start doing stuff. So those are some ways where I keep myself motivated. And in fact, I've always, I grew up as a large kid, and then I had to lose weight. I lost 50 pounds. And thank you. For me to have a constant reminder of how much work I've done and where I am today. On the shelves where there are chocolates and chips, I have a picture of me being big, and then I also have another picture of me being like this.
Oh,
It's a
cool.
constant motivation. So whenever I
Yeah.
want to reach for the chocolate, I have to see that picture, and then it is going to motivate me, right? So again, these are things which works for me, right? So folks listening, you could try to figure out what is going to help motivate you, but definitely having an accountability partner really, really helps. Research
Yeah.
has found that people who have accountability partners have 95% more chance of achieving their goals compared to people who do not have any support system. So find that support system, recognize what your intrinsic motivation is, recognize what your extrinsic motivation is, and that's how you keep going.
No, I agree totally with you because, like you mentioned, it's amazing, the internal and external. The internal you should be controlling of. The external is something sometimes you cannot control, but having accountability is great. And because you cannot control outside factors, you should not stop doing what you want to do, because if something outside of your control happens and you say to yourself, well, I'm not going to do that happened, this happened, you're never gonna reach your goal in whatever career or business you're going to do, because eventually it's like, to me, it's like the traffic you cannot control if there is traffic, so you need to be patient and not honking all the time. This is this is how I think of external things.
Right. And also remember, the way I'm speaking, then people immediately think, man, this person is perfect. He always keeps getting motivated. No, that's not true. Even I am a work in progress. There are times where none of these motivation helps. So that's when I go for a run to refresh my brain, or just for 3 days, don't do anything, right? Take a break, take a mental break, do something
To clear
which,
things out of your head.
yeah, to get to blow some steam, do something, whatever that means to you. For me, it's working out. That's what helps me. And then spending time with my family and my kid, that's what helps me to release steam. So you have to figure out what helps you to get out of that rut. So again, it's very case by case basis, but most of the things I'm saying can be applied by anyone. And it's all about, again, the key is, again, experimentation to see which one actually works for you. And once you keep experimenting, then you can figure out what actually makes you tick, what makes you get going.
So speaking of ticking, how important and why investing in in their selves is very important and essential to achieve their goals? Because, for example, if someone, like, we know nowadays, maybe having a bachelor degree, for example, is like the norm now, right? But how do you think important it is to go beyond that? I'm not talking here maybe talking about master's degrees or these kind of degrees. I'm talking about self-learning, these kind of things.
I think there's a quote, right? I think it was by Albert Einstein or Isaac Newton, but one of them said, if you stop learning, then you start dying, or something on those lines. And that is so true, because only when you start learning, you can start figuring out different opportunities. You can start figuring out what your passions are, right? And that happens only when you learn. And you'll be really surprised. So for example, I'm a tech guy, right? And I've been in software development, software testing my entire life, where I build software or write code to do something with software. But through that journey, I started investing in myself to become a speaker. I wanted to get rid of my fear of public speaking. And in fact, funny story, I swiped $3,000 of my own credit card when I didn't have money to go to a software conference, because I wanted to get rid of my fear of public speaking. And there I saw a lot of speakers speaking. And then I got this, I had this light bulb moment where I realized, what better way to get rid of your fear of public speaking than actually becoming a speaker, right? And that happened because I decided to invest in myself. And then fast forwarding 10 years down the line, I've spoken at 100 plus conferences and I've given 2 TEDx talks. That's what investing in yourself can do. It can help you identify the opportunities for your next thing. It can help you discover new things about yourself. It can help you discover your strengths. And that's why it's really important to invest in yourself. So for example, I started off as a software developer, a person who writes code to build software. And then I moved into testing software, where you write code to make sure the software works properly. Then I became I got into manager positions, and then I became what's called a developer evangelist, which is speaking at different conferences, representing companies and doing R&D. And then I became an entrepreneur. So then I started writing for different magazines. Then now I'm speaking as well. So all these things would not have happened if I constantly didn't keep investing in myself. So the summary of what I'm trying to say here is, don't ever be scared to try out new things. The worst thing that could happen is you may not like it, and then that's it, leave it and then go to the next one. But
exactly.
at least try it for 2 weeks before you let it go, because unless you try it for at least about 2 weeks, you don't know whether you're good at it. And that's why investing in yourself is so important, to discover your passion, to figure out new opportunities.
Oh, amazing. That's cool. So speaking of investing in self and these kind of things and talking, so how, and in career development, for example, I think that, for example, having a good conversation with colleagues or with the managers above you or below you or whatever people. So how do you make a conversation a good one?
How do you make good conversations, right, with people, and maybe also try to build your network, try to grow? So there are a lot of strategies for that. So the first thing first is you always want to do the research. So what do I mean by that? Say, for example, you're working for a manager and you want to have, interesting conversations, or you go to a conference or you go to a networking event and you want to talk to someone, but you don't know how to have a meaningful conversation. Just do the research. A person's entire profile is on LinkedIn. Okay. Yeah. So what you're going to do is, even before talking to the person, let's take an example to set some context here. Say people want to connect with me and start off a conversation. I give keynotes and they're like 20, 30 people, trying to come and talk to me, but I don't have time for like 20, 30 people. But if you want to stand out from the crowd and then get more of my time, what you need to do is go to LinkedIn. In the search bar, put Raj Subrameyer, my full name. Literally, my whole portfolio is going to be on my LinkedIn profile. There I mentioned what my interest areas are, what I worked on, what my passion is. Take some notes, right? So if you open up a conversation related to leadership, motivation, career development, AI, software, right? Those are my trigger words. So when you actually start a conversation like that, and of course beer as well, but if you start a conversation like that, then immediately I'm going to start talking to you. So first thing is do the research. Look at the LinkedIn profile, find some things which are interest for the other person. Once you do the research, then again, taking me as an example. So say you meet me or I'm your boss, you're going to come to me, and it does not necessarily have to be in a formal way where you schedule a one-on-one meeting and then talk to the person. Say a person is I'm just walking by, you'd say, "Hey Raj, how's it going?" Right? That's an easy way to start engaging. And then you could say, "Hey, by the way, I read your article on toxic leadership, which you just published, and these are the 3 things which resonated with me." And then list out the 3 things. That's it. You immediately caught my attention. Then I'll talk to you for half an hour to 1 hour. See how you actually can do the research and then have specific conversations. So and then immediately there'll be a group of people who will come and tell me, "No, I'm an introverted person. It's easy for you because you're an extrovert." Fun fact, I was a shy introverted kid throughout my life. And even now, I'm an ambivert where I can talk
like
for
in the middle.
So I can talk for 3 days continuously, and then for a week I cannot talk to anyone, right? So no matter who you are, what characteristics define you, it doesn't matter. When you do the research and then give specific pointers which is of interest to another person, then that conversation can immediately, become a longer conversation. You're going to engage, you can get the person's interest and attention, and then you could build your network. So that's how you want to strike up conversations. Do the research, have engaging conversations based on the research.
Cool. So, and these guys maybe help you build your business or grow your career. So speaking of career, I want to know, what do you think, or how can someone find the ideal career, let's say?
how can someone find your ideal career? So that
Yeah.
again goes back to the basics, right? First, do the mind dump exercise. Then
Mm.
figure out what your strengths are, what you want to do. Say, for example, again, you like to be creative, you love to build software, you hate being micromanaged, you hate processes. Then being a software developer at a startup company is something which is going to align with your strengths, because in bigger companies, you tend to have a lot of process, a lot of red tape. But in startup companies, you have to take the initiative and you have more opportunity to be creative, right? Or say, for example, you love collaboration, you love speaking about products to people, you love designing, then maybe being a salesperson or a marketing person is what you want to do. So going to the same exercise, you're going to find 4 to 5 career options which aligns with your strengths. Take the top 3 career options. And the next thing you want to do is go to your LinkedIn and update your profile to reflect these top 3 career options that you have with the right keywords. Now, how are you going to find keywords? Look at the existing job descriptions and just take the keywords from there and put that on your LinkedIn profile, because everything you put on LinkedIn is SEO information, which is search engine optimization, and it's indexed by Google. So what I mean by that is, if when recruiters actually look for, say, for example, a software developer, they use softwares where they put in keywords like programming, coding, team player, collaboration, Java, programming language names and stuff. If you have those keywords listed on your LinkedIn profile, the software is going to screen your LinkedIn and then it'll make you show up in the results. That's why it's so important to update your LinkedIn profile based on the jobs you want. Then the next thing is create 3 types of resumes based on the 3 kinds of jobs, because one of the most common mistakes people do is have one single resume and they apply for every freaking job.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's the same resume that goes to everyone.
Yeah, it's like having a marketing resume and then you're trying to apply for a nursing or to be a doctor. It doesn't even make sense. So you have to customize your resumes based on the jobs. Once you do that, then have an Excel sheet where you start tracking each and every job application which you're doing, because say 60 jobs into this after you apply for say 60 jobs, out of the blue, you're going to get a call from a company and they'll say, hey, I want to talk about the software developer job you applied for. You have no clue of what the job is. So, you don't have any relevance or anything to talk about. So if you track all this in an Excel sheet, you could say, oh, give me 1 minute. Let me go to a quiet space. But in that 1 minute, what you are going to do is go to that Excel sheet, see what the job was, and then have more relevant conversation. And then have a goal of how many jobs you want to apply for per week. Say you want to apply for 50 jobs per week, which is kind of the normal thing you need to do. Then split that into 10 jobs per day. So, okay, Monday, I'm going to do 10 jobs. Tuesday, I'm going to do 10 jobs. And then do it at a particular time. Say every day from 10 a.m. till 12 p.m., I'm going to apply for jobs. If you do this whole thing, then you're strategic about how you can find your ideal career, and you're going to be strategic about how to get those jobs as well.
Great. That's a great tip, especially like you mentioned also LinkedIn being found, your profile being found on Google, actually, not just LinkedIn itself from the companies there. So yeah, so speaking of resumes a little bit, what advice would you give new graduates, whether and how to apply, or for example, on, like you mentioned, on their CVs?
Yeah, so apart from all the strategies which I've mentioned, which applies to college grads as well, talking specifically about resumes, you really want to keep it short, within 1.5 to 2 pages, because this is not a thesis. You don't want 10 pages of resumes, because this is the thing. Recruiters spend less than 10-15 seconds screening through the resume. Immediately, your resume should show what your value is, and you should mention all those keywords which we were just talking about in your resume, right? So have a 2-page resume, clearly tell them what your work objective is, what are you looking for, and then list down your experiences in bullet points. Then if you have what technical skills, put your technical skills, then any certifications. If you have a website, put that, and then you can put your education, And yeah, so those are the basic things you want to have, but clearly mention what you're looking for. The first thing should be a work objective. The section, I like putting work objective because you could say something like recent college grad looking for full-time positions in software development, just graduated with a master's degree in software engineering. If you put that immediately in the first line of your resume, immediately people know, oh, okay, he recently graduated, he has a master's. It's like your elevator pitch. Your quick, usually it's elevator pitches are like 1.5 to 2 minutes of what your value is, but in resumes you don't have that much space. So in 2 lines, clearly tell them what you're looking for, what your skill sets, and that will force people to look further in your resume. And make sure you have those keywords. And I like having a picture on the resume, just like your LinkedIn. Don't have your picture with your cat or a drink, because it's again a professional thing. So you want to make sure, and it's the same thing applies for LinkedIn as well. Have a professional picture. And yeah, so those are some basic components of what your resume needs to have. It's just about clarity, being succinct, and being within 2 pages, highlighting why you need to get that interview call from the company.
Exactly. And also, like you mentioned, sometimes you might apply, you may have studied certain major in university, and you may apply to do 3-4 different things that not really related. So you want to change your CV and
exactly.
I mean, let's say not lie, but change some things that you did or you might be able to do in this, for example, in this objective line for the company that you are, or the job you are applying for, right? Not the same CV goes everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have to customize it based on what you're doing. So for example, you have a BA in English, but you want to be a software developer. You don't have to mention BA English in your work objective. You could say that looking for a full-time job as a software developer, and here's my all details about me can found on this website. And on the website you can add stuff which shows that you've been proactive to learn. And then you could say that any other achievements you have, you could mention that. So see how based on what job you're applying for, you just have to tweak the work objective, because it's all about grabbing attention. Because as we were talking about, we live in the digital age. Our retention span is reduced quite a bit after we got Instagram. So the point is, how catchy can you be? And the same thing applies for LinkedIn. You really want to have a catchy tagline, your headline. So one way college grads could have a headline is, again, going with the software developer example, you could say, looking for software developer full-time jobs. So that's the tagline. Or you could say, looking to write code to solve complex problems. So, which is catchy, right? So 90% of the people are going to have this normal tagline, looking for opportunities, looking for software developer jobs. But if you have the catchy tagline saying, helping to write code to solve complex problems, then immediately it catches the attention. It's all about grabbing attention, folks.
Exactly.
And it's all about, once you grab the attention, then how do you make them view the rest of your resume or LinkedIn profile? Just like your Instagram feed, you keep scrolling, all of a sudden you pass because there's something catchy, right? It's the exact same scenario with your LinkedIn and with your resume as well.
Yeah, exactly. This is why we do, because companies get lots of submitted resumes and they cannot go in detail with every one of them.
Exactly.
You have to be, let's say, strategic maybe in this, and be careful in selecting your CVs that you submit to companies. So do you think, for example, salary negotiation or asking for a salary at the beginning or in an interview is a good thing or not?
I would say try to push the salary negotiation and the salary process towards the end, because first thing is you want to gain experience through the interview process, because even if you don't get the job, at least it makes you better to attend other interviews. So I would try to keep the salary part towards the end. And in the end, when they ask you what your salary expectations are, one biggest mistake people make is they'll say, I want $50,000, right? They'll just say one number, but the company would have already thought about giving you $80,000 and you just lowballed yourself by saying $50,000. Then they would say, that's great. It works for us. So now you lowball yourself and then you got the job. That's why I never say the exact number. You should always tell your salary expectations in ranges. So you should say, I'm expecting between $60,000 to $90,000. Then they would say, 90,000 seems to be, at the higher end. Maybe we could settle down at 75. We'll say, well, okay, that's fine. See how you just increase your salary from 50 to 75,000. And there are different ways to get these ranges. If you go to Glassdoor, Indeed, you could actually figure out for your particular job in your particular location, what is the salary ranges. And my advice would be, so usually when you do the research, you get the lowest possible, then the medium, and then the maximum you could get. I would say start with the medium as your lowest, and then add about 10 to 20% to the maximum. So say, for example, you did the research and it said, in your job, you can get between 50 to 90,000. I would start the salary negotiation saying, I need 70 to 110K. They would say 110 is actually pretty high. We can come down to about 85. Then you say, okay, I like the culture, so it's okay. Let's do 85. See how you actually increase your salary quite a bit.
Yeah, this is a great idea, actually.
Following the simple strategy, folks, I've increased my salary by over 150% in my past 15 years. And my clients have increased their salary by over 400%. This is not rocket science. It's all about how you have a conversation based on data and facts. Take the emotions aside. You need to have conversation based on data and facts. And coming back to your question of when do you want to have this conversation, always have it towards the end. And if people still force you to have it up front, you would say that, it would depend upon the cost of living and how and what you can offer me, but we can talk about it later. So you can always push it off and then they won't pressure you. But in spite of that, if they pressure you, then you could say what your ranges are, because you should always do the research even before attending an interview. So those are some things you want to keep in mind when it comes to salary negotiation process. And one thing you want to keep in mind is people have this wrong notion that salary negotiation means one person has to lose for another person to win. No, you can come to a win-win situation because the company is spending so much time in interviewing you. The time they spend in interviewing you is the time they spend not doing their job for which they're actually paid for. So the company is losing money. So trust me on this, they don't want to keep interviewing people because it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So once they
find cost the company, like I mentioned.
Cost for the company. So once they find the ideal candidate, they really want you. Okay. So they're not going to rescind the offer if they, because they spend so much time. A lot of people are scared. Oh, if I ask for higher salary, they will take back the job offer. No, they spend so much time for a reason. So that is from their side. From your side, you're just trying to get to what you would feel comfortable with, right? And then both get to a middle ground, and then it could be a win-win situation. So that's why it's called salary negotiation. It's not called salary war, salary debate. It's called salary negotiation because two parties are trying to negotiate and come at an agreement, right? So that is something you want to keep in mind.
Awesome. I love this idea of having a range between a number and another number. I actually never thought of that. This is a great idea, actually, because sometimes when companies ask someone's that, you put for me, what I used to do is, like, for example, if I have a certain salary, I would just double it. I would say I want to double. If I make 1,000, I tell them I want 2,000, 2,000, 4,000. This is what I do, but this could be a better strategy, actually.
Yeah, because you want to research what salary you could get for that particular position, right? Because you cannot say, yeah, I want $250,000 when the salary can only be $90,000, then people think you're crazy, right? So that's not the way to negotiate. So that's why you need to have some data and facts, exactly. And then you can negotiate better. And also from their end, they also know what the salary ranges are. They're not stupid. So they have done their research. So you have to do your research, because this is the thing. If you don't ask for your salary, a person like me is going to come and take your salary. That's what is going to happen. And I'm not cheating. I'm just fighting for what I'm worth. So this is what I ask people, clients who work with me, they would be afraid to negotiate salary. Then I would say you're walking on the road. Will you randomly go give $20,000 to a random stranger? What's your answer for that, right? So they'll say yes or no. Of course, the answer is going to be no. Then that's what is going to happen. If you don't negotiate your salary, a person like me is going to come and say, I want this amount of money, and then whatever money that's spent for you, it's going to go for me. And that's how it is. That's how life is. So you have to take care of yourself, your family. You have to respect your craft, your work, your experience, and you have to talk based on that. Don't be afraid to have those conversations.
Yeah, exactly. So Raj, tell us what would be one takeaway for this episode for our audience, Grid Nation.
I think one biggest takeaway from all our conversations is that mindset and consistency is the key for growth. So you really have to shift your mindset to a positive frame of mind, and then do work consistently. When you have those two things, then no matter what you do, where you are, you are going to see opportunities. You will see some failures, but you will also see a lot of successes.
Cool. Where can people get in touch with you, Raj?
So all my life's work can be found on my website, rajsubra.com, rajsubra.com. There you'll find my entire life history, how I help people, my writing, everything can be found there. Also, I launched my book last December. It's called Skyrocket Your Career. I hit number 5 on the Amazon bestseller list, and it won an award as the best nonfiction book here in the US. So
cool.
I teach you all the strategies from applying for jobs to how to succeed at your jobs, including negotiation strategy, interview strategies, negotiation strategies, and stuff like that. So if you want information about that, go to skyrocketyourcareerbook.com, skyrocketyourcareerbook.com. There people can download the first chapter for free, and they can decide whether they want to buy the book. But yeah, and I have a lot of free resources there. So those are the 2 ways you can reach me. And of course, I live on LinkedIn, so make sure you follow and connect with me there. So
of course, you're LinkedIn, you're a career strategist kind of, so you have to be there.
Right.
Well, awesome. Thank you, Raj, for being with me on this episode of the Success Grid podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. It was a pleasure.